talking about where the real Mount Sinai is located, and had been told that the mountain was the holy mountain of Moses.
This is Saudi Arabia, a country that has terrified the whole world by a shocking discovery that solves the greatest biblical mystery of all time: the mystery behind the parting of the Red Sea from the Old Testament. The recent discovery claims that the Nuweiba Beach, located on the coast of the Gulf of Aqaba, is indeed the spot from where the Israelis escaped from the Egypt army. What makes this more interesting is that they have strong archaeological evidence to prove it. How did they find this site? Could this discovery threaten the authenticity of the Bible? Were we being lied to about these biblical stories until now? Stick around till the very end of this video to witness the greatest lie being debunked by Saudi Arabia. You remember Moses, right? The prophet from the Bible who had a conversation with God through a burning bush. He was instructed to go to Egypt and demand that the stubborn Pharaoh let his people go. After a series of plagues, Pharaoh finally gave in, but not for long. Pharaoh had a change of heart and sent his army, including chariots, to chase after the Israelites. Imagine the fear the Israelites must have felt, trapped between the Egyptian army and a vast ocean. Little did they know that God had big plans in their favor. He told Moses to stretch out his hand over the sea, and like magic, the water split, creating a path for the Israelites to cross. Now, here's where it gets interesting. When the Egyptians tried to follow the Israelites, their chariot wheels got stuck or fell off, making it nearly impossible for them to continue. As if that wasn't enough, Moses raised his hands again, and the sea came crashing back, sweeping away the pursuing Egyptians. Fast forward to modern times, and researchers decided to explore the seabed of the Red Sea. And what do you think they found? You guessed it, chariot wheels. Scuba divers even discovered circular patterns consistent with the shape of chariot wheels. It's hard to deny that this is some pretty compelling evidence. Even before scientists shed light on this amazing discovery, a guy named Ron Wyatt stumbled upon it years ago, but no one believed him. According to the Bible, a massive number of Hebrew slaves escaped Egypt by walking through the parted waters of the Red Sea. In 1978, while flying over the Sea of Aqaba, south of Israel, Wyatt spotted an intriguing spot resembling the place where Moses got stuck between the Red Sea and Pharaoh's army. Off he went, driving through a winding canyon called Wadi Wadir to reach Nuweiba Beach. Can you imagine the feeling of being trapped, just like Moses and the Hebrews? The canyon walls closing in, the million slaves squeeze it onto a sandy beach, with the Red Sea in front and Pharaoh's army approaching from behind. Pharaoh's army thought they had an easy victory at hand, but little did they know that walls of water towering almost 900 feet were about to come crashing down on them. When Wyatt arrived at Nuweiba Beach, he found evidence that this was indeed the spot where the crossing occurred. A massive stone column, with its inscription washed away, lay in the water. Also, an identical column on the other side of the Red Sea had Hebrew writing, praising the God of Israel for delivering his people through the Red Sea. It's believed that King Solomon erected these columns as a permanent reminder of the Exodus. And guess what else? Wyatt started exploring underwater and found a fragile yet stunning gold-plated chariot wheel in the crystal-clear waters of the Red Sea. Later, he and his sons discovered more chariot wheels and man-made artifacts. The coral had latched onto the wood, perfectly preserving evidence of the Exodus and the annihilation of Pharaoh's army, estimated to be around 250,000 soldiers and chariots. These chariot wheels, some with 4, 6, or 8 spokes, were typical of the ones used during Moses' time. Wyatt even recovered a wheel hub with 8 spokes, dating back over 3,500 years to the 18th dynasty of ancient Egypt. This significant find now rests in Cairo, on display for all to see. The bottom of the Red Sea is like a junkyard, filled with these astonishing relics that have been preserved for thousands of years. Who would have thought? Wyatt also discovered an underwater land bridge stretching from Nuweiba Beach to Saudi Arabia, the land of Midian, where Moses and his people gathered at Mount Sinai. This bridge slopes gently down to almost 900 feet before rising back up on the other side. Imagine walls of water reaching 900 feet high. No wonder Pharaoh's army met their tragic end here. Finding the crossing site was the key to locating the real Mount Sinai in Midian. For years, people believed it was in the southern tip of the Sinai Peninsula, but after extensive archaeological digs, it became clear that there was no encampment there. The Bible even mentions that that Mount Sinai is in Arabia, on the opposite side of the Gulf of Aqaba, which is part of the Red Sea. So, if it weren't for God providing that underwater land bridge, Moses and his people would have been toast at the hands of Pharaoh's soldiers. For years, people believed that Mount Sinai, where Moses received the 10 Commandments, was located in Egypt's Sharm el-Sheikh. However, the Saudi Arabians have long claimed that Mount Sinai is actually in Saudi Arabia. A pilot who flew over the area in the 1940s even talks about being forbidden to discuss the true location of Mount Sinai. Before we reach the mountain itself, let me show you some very convincing evidence that this could well be the real Mount Sinai. In Al-Badr, in Saudi Arabia, there is an archaeological site called Moses' Well. Islamic sources, which go as far back as 900 AD, claim that this is the well where Moses watered his flocks and met the daughters of Jethro. But what about this? In the Bible, we read about Moses and the Israelites finding this beautiful desert oasis called Elim. At Elim, there were many springs of water and 70 palm trees. So now cast your eyes onto this collection of palm trees, which is found reasonably close to the supposed Mount Sinai. And what is it the locals for many years have called this area? They also have called it Elam. But here's some more compelling evidence for you. We know that Moses, after writing down God's laws in the Book of the Covenant, set up an altar for burnt sacrifices. Well, here's an ancient altar made of uncut stones, just like the Lord specified. And when it was dug up years earlier, do you know what they found? The remains of many animals. We also know that because the Israelites were disobedient, 3,000 people were struck down. And some actually believe that these gravestones could be the gravestones of those who worshiped the golden calf. If you look here, you can see what appears to be mortars that are dotted all the way around Mount Sinai. And it's been speculated, could these be the mortars that were used to grind the manna every single day? Josephus, the Jewish historian, said that the rock of Horeb was so big that it couldn't be moved. And this split rock, right here, is estimated to be between 40 and 60 feet high. And inside the rock, it's smooth with grooves that clearly show some kind of water erosion, which is kind of strange to find in the middle of the desert in Saudi Arabia. But most interesting of all, this rock is found at the foot of Mount Sinai that we're about to look at in a moment's time. When the people of Israel were in the wilderness, they began to get very thirsty, and so they started to complain to Moses. Moses, you've led us out into this wilderness for us to die of thirst. And Moses took all of this to heart, and he cried out, God, what do you want me to do with these people? This was the Lord's response. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock in Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water will come out of it that the people may drink. So Moses obeyed God and struck the rock, and out of it flowed abundant water, and the people drank and were satisfied. It could be a very interesting find if scientists can prove the authenticity of these findings.